It is time to rest Declan Rice. And it's not just Declan Rice that needs resting. There's a couple of players I don't want to see at this Arsenal side for a good couple of games. And he will say this, if we do need to bring them on, by all means do so. Keep him on the bench. And if you can get away with resting for a couple of games, then I think we should. We've got Club Brugge and Wolves in the next two games, and I think that Arsenal should, with their squad, be beating them with whatever team we put out. I don't think it matters what we do in these next two games. Arsenal should be winning both of these games. And I do think that we've got to be realistic about the opportunity that we've got here, because I don't see another slot where we can try and mix it up. I don't see another opportunity where we think that we are so superior to those two teams that we can afford to take that risk. I look at Everton coming up. I look at Brighton coming up. I look at Villa coming up. And then it starts to get a little bit more trickier. I do think that there is some games that we will naturally rotate. The League Cup game against Palace coming up, I think we will rotate for that game. We always seem to do that in the Carabao Cup. But I look at the opportunity that we've got in this festive period, and the games come thick and fast. Now, I need to see a few individuals in particular get some breathing space and actually come back stronger, because what I think people forget is they're human beings and they've been playing for a very, very long time. We're looking in particular at Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice has been running on fumes in the last couple of games. We saw that, Brentford and the game against Villa, that it was an opportunity for him to actually rest him a little bit, and he didn't do it in either of those games. And I look at the situation of Brentford, he had to go down in the 82nd minute with an ankle problem or a muscle problem for Arteta to want to take him off. Now, I understand the importance of Declan Rice. I'm not saying that we should be just bringing him on if we have to on every single game. I know why he has to play, but I want him fit for the big games. And I think if you've got an opportunity of playing Wolves or Manchester City, I'd want to keep him fit for Manchester City and rest him at Wolves. I wouldn't want to do it the other way around. Some people say, well, you get 3 points at Wolves or you get 3 points at City. It don't really matter. You've got to play him in both. I appreciate that. If he was fit enough, I'd play him all the time. This guy is not going to be fit for 60 games this season. We have to work around his fitness and his fatigue. And I look at the scenario of Bukayo Saka, who got a grade 3 hamstring injury because of being overplayed. And I don't want that to happen to Declan Rice. So Declan Rice, I think, needs to sit out the game against Club Brugge. I also think Declan Rice needs to sit out the game against Wolves on the bench and be brought on if need be. Now, hopefully, if you get yourself in a position where you beat Brugge without Declan Rice, you put yourself 2-0 up against Wolves, then you probably don't need to bring Declan Rice on. But you might need to, if, say, you're 1-0 up with 20 minutes to go, see out the game, get that second, bring Declan Rice on. No problem with that. But at least try to give him some form of rest. If we're going to play him against Bruges, and then we're going to play him against Wolves, and then we're going to play him against Everton, and we're going to play him against Villa, and it keeps going on, this guy's just going to burn out. So we have to learn from it. And Mikel Arteta needs to learn from it with Declan Rice. He's the biggest worry right now for me. And it's not because he's our most important player. It's because actually he's the only one that I think Arsenal can't do without. We've seen that Arsenal look different without Gabriel and Saliba, but we've coped in some of those games without losing them, other than Villa with Nketiah and Mosquera. When Mosquera's out, you've managed to bring Timber, or you can put White into that middle. With Declan Rice, I truly don't think Marino's the answer there. I don't think Ethan is defensive enough to play there. I don't think Eze or Erdegaard are defensive enough to play there, which leaves really only Miles Lewis-Skelly as the option in my head that can work there, but the manager's never played him in midfield yet. So I really don't see that there's a natural replacement for Declan Rice. And if it's Nørgaard, it's nowhere near as good. If it's Zubamendi, it's nowhere near as good. And I think both of them are probably needed alongside one of those that I've mentioned. So I don't think that we've got a natural replacement for Declan Rice. And it is someone in the summer that I would go and look at. Maybe we go and put in a bid for Yuri Tielemans, a player we've always liked there. I know he's not quite the box-to-box, but he certainly is in terms of where he is on the pitch. He hasn't got the legs and the engine of Declan Rice, but he certainly is in and around that position. Somebody like Morgan Rogers, I think, would be probably too attacking, but we are looking at some players abroad that in that position that potentially could be moulded into a Declan Rice backup. But right now, I don't think that we've got one. I really don't. Marino's got nowhere near the athleticism or legs in there. He's definitely seen as someone who floats further up top. But I do think there needs to be somebody brought into the club or somebody utilised into that Declan Rice backup, because it's a massive key issue for us moving forward. So Declan Rice is a massive part of what we do, but we do need to look at him and we do need to rest him. And I don't want to be seeing him against Club Brugge at all. And I do think that if we bring him on against Wolves, it's because we're struggling, and we shouldn't be against Wolves. We bought Christian Nørgaard. Does anybody know why? I mean, we were told he was fantastic business, an upgrade on Jorginho, someone who's come in, which is a no-brainer, captain, leader, Premier League proven. Mikel Arteta doesn't think so. He hasn't played him. He literally has not played him. Now, some of the opportunity there hasn't been to play him, but when he has had the opportunity, he's not. Brentford was an opportunity to give him some minutes, didn't see him. Are we going to see him against Club Brugge? Probably. I think we probably are. But I've got to be honest with you, I'm not in a position right now where I'm wanting to see Declan Rice. And I don't mind if we end up seeing Nørgaard like a little bit more. I'll say that. I think Nørgaard needs to come in. The other player that I've, of course, got concerns on is Saka. And it's not so much his fitness. It's actually about more his performances. I don't think they've been anywhere near world-class or elite like we've seen in recent times. I don't think he's been the same since his injury. I don't think Bukayo Saka, we rely on him as much as we do anymore, which I think is a positive. But also it's seen as a negative because the guy's not really putting in performances at the moment that looks like star boy, looks like best player, looks like most important player. And he certainly has been over the last 4 or 5 years, in my opinion. I don't think Bukayo Saka looked quite right at the moment. And he's a player that I think deserves a little bit more rest. Now that Madueke's come back, I think we might see that. I don't expect to see him against Bruges. I do expect to see him against Wolves, but hopefully it's from the bench and hopefully he gets a few minutes and has a little bit of rest and we start to see Bukayo Saka over the coming weeks get back to his regular and wanted form because he's been so good for us and so vital and pivotal to what we're trying to do over the last few years. He's been the guy that's carried us in games. He's been the guy that's taken us 3 points so many times. He's been the guy on the end of things. He's been the assist king, and he's been the one that is seen as the most important. I think in the last few seasons, he's had 30 goals and assists. Now, last season, he didn't have that because of his injury. This season, I need to be seeing him hitting those targets again. And at the moment, I don't think that I'm going to see that from him if this carries on. Now, I would like to rest Jurriën Timber. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. We tried to rest Jurriën Timber, if you remember, but he had to come on in the game against Spurs because Mosquera got injured. And since then, he hasn't actually been able to be playing or rested, since then. Timber's been wanted over at right back and in right centre back, and I think he's done a job there, but he's not quite the same player when you take him away from right back. Now, there's this question mark about whether Ben White should play in the middle and Timber should be going over to the right back side again, but really and truly, I don't think it matters until Saliba comes back, really. I want to see Timber rested. And when Saliba does come back and he is fit enough to play, I actually would play Ben White and Saliba for a game just to give Timber a little bit of a break because he must be exhausted. The guy's tried to have a break. Yeah, I've got a break today. Oh, I've got to come on again now because Mosquera's got injured. And Timber's come off the back of an ACL, come off the back of a season where he literally was playing game after game after game, somehow running on fumes, and then says he was injured, gets himself back to fitness, and he's playing again and again and again. I do feel like he's the next one I'm worried about. And they're the three that I would say I'm genuinely concerned about. Gabriel and Saliba have gone kaput. They now need to come back. They've had their rest. Obviously, Martin Odegaard's got back into the mix. He's had his rest. Ben White needed a little bit of rest, if I'm honest, and last season was affected by playing pretty much game in, game out 4 or 5 years in a row. He's now got back to fitness and hopefully he stays there. And there's another couple of question marks we've got over some of the players that are playing a hell of a lot of football. Let's just say how it is. Marino being one of them. So I do think we need to rotate a little bit more. I've been impressed in some of the games where he has rotated Mikel Arteta, but I just feel like he needs to learn a little bit more sometimes. He needs to actually allow Ethan Nwaneri on the field. He needs to ensure that Nørgaard's getting minutes. These guys need minutes and deserve minutes, but they're not getting any. But now we've got a chance to. We've got an opportunity here, a window of 2 games where I think the squad rotating would still be enough to take 3 points against Wolves and 3 points against Club Brugge in both the Champions League table and the Premier League table. And I think what we need to do is convincingly show everybody that Mikel Arteta not only can rotate, but that he trusts this squad. Because over the years, he hasn't trusted Reece Nelson. He hasn't trusted Smith Rowe. He hasn't trusted Nuno Tavares, Lokonga, Raheem Sterling, Fabio Vieira. The only player I think he trusted in the squad, believe it or not, was Eddie Nketiah. That was it. He was the one that got the minutes. That needs to change. I need to see more. And hopefully Ethan gets some minutes. Hopefully Dauman gets some minutes. Hopefully Nørgaard gets some minutes in the Carabao Cup games and the Champions League games if they are more of a dead rubber. I think if we were to win tonight, the next 2 games become a little bit of a dead rubber because we'd have 18 points, which is enough to get you into the top 8. As much as I want to win them all, you'd like to think that we'll beat Kairat at home at the Emirates in the last game in the new year. So that would just leave, if we win tonight, the game at the San Siro against Inter Milan, which you never want to go and play your kids against. But to be fair, I probably would throw that one away if it meant that we could get our league form back more consistent. I don't think we've done that. In the last 5 league games, we've dropped 3. We've dropped to Sunderland, Villa and Chelsea in games that I expected to win and would probably put money on Arsenal to win, particularly against Sunderland, particularly against Chelsea. And I appreciate that we played Villa at a very difficult time. They've been unbelievable and they did nick it in the last minute. But I would have thought that we would have had enough. But the squad depth is there. There's no excuses now. So I want to see a little bit of change. And look, I don't know what that looks like personally. I'm not sure what that looks like. But I have a little bit of a guess and a little bit of a play because I do feel like there's an opportunity to really use some of this time in these next 2 games to rest some of the players that truly deserve it. And I do believe that the players I've mentioned are those. So let's go through what I think the team might look like. I'll share my screen and we'll go for what I think it might look like tonight. And then we'll look at ways in which we can sort of switch around with Wolves. So we've got a clear screen here. Going to put in the players, I think. Tonight, I don't agree with mixing goalkeepers. A lot of people are saying that it should be Kepa, but I'm going to stick with David Raya tonight just because I don't really trust Kepa, if I'm honest. I know he's back up, but he really is there only for a few games. I think Ben White is going to continue at right back. And I also think that we're going to see a centre-back pairing which remains similar to what we saw at Aston Villa with Timber and Nkapie. Now, we've got a question at left-back. I would say a lot of people expect to see Lewis Skelly tonight. The reason I'm going to go with Calafiori is because he's suspended against Wolves. So therefore, I expect him to start tonight and Lewis Skelly to start at the weekend. Now, in midfield, I would absolutely love to see Lewis Skelly, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it's probably going to be Odegaard, who I think will definitely play. Oh, wrong. In there, sorry, it'll be Nørgaard. I think it's time to play Nørgaard, if I'm honest. I think it will be Marino, who drops back into midfield. And then I think it will be Odegaard because he's needing the minutes. On the left, Trossard is out. Therefore, it will be Martinelli over Eze. On the right, I think Saka sits this one out and it's Noni Madueke. And up top, I think it's back and time for Victor Gyökeres. So that's the team that I think he'll go with against Club Brugge tonight. I don't think there's many people that can complain with what we've seen there. And I do think that there's options to still change that. Maybe Ethan comes into that midfield. Maybe Ethan goes on the wide right. Maybe Eze does play in the middle with Odegaard. Or maybe he puts in Lewis Skelly into midfield to give him some legs and minutes ready to play and start a left back at the weekend. I don't think that's a weak side. Now, if he goes with Kepa instead of Raya, fair play. But really, I think it's going to be similar to that. I think it's going to be similar to that 11, which is enough to beat Club Brugge, a team that have picked up 5 points. Very difficult team, very good team, especially at home. Caused some problems to Barcelona. But let's be real, Arsenal should have enough there. Should have the pace and power and technical ability of both Martinelli and Madueke. Gyökeres, he can be, when he wants to be, a goal scorer. And he has done well in the Champions League for Sporting and, of course, against Atletico Madrid for Arsenal. You've got the midfield there of Odegaard, which needs to be creative. Marino knows what it's like in the box and aerially to get a goal. Nørgaard deserves minutes, hasn't had enough yet. Doesn't quite look ready for me or as an Arsenal player, but I think you've got to give him a go because he was bought there for these games. Calafiori is a starter. Timber is a starter, not in that position, but he's a starter. And then, of course, you've got Nkapie, who has impressed other than at the weekend where he took it off for a throw-in, which caused the goal. I would have just cleared that, but really and truly, he's still getting used to this team. And Ben White, who I think has been excellent since he's coming back into the Arsenal side. That should be good enough to beat Club Brugge. It should be. I think the fullbacks are key there, and I think the wide players at Arsenal are key there as well, both down the right-hand side and left-hand side. I think Ben White, Odegaard and Madueke will be interested, and I think Martinelli, Marino and Calafiori will be interested. I'm sure that Nkapie and Timber will keep it solid, but they've got to be careful. I think the only problem we might have in this game is that midfield trio. I just don't think it's got much athleticism or legs in it, if I'm honest. I think it's a little bit old and might need a little bit of freshening up, which is why I wouldn't mind if we saw a little bit more from Arteta in terms of going for it a bit. So instead of Marino, maybe he plays Wanyeri. Or instead of Marino, maybe he plays Eze and goes a little bit more attacking to have Nørgaard sitting while Odegaard and Eze either side of him go forward. Maybe he can do that. Or if he doesn't believe that Eze's needing to be risked, then play Miles Lewis-Skelly in there, who, let's be real, is a player that, in my opinion, has a long-term future in that box-to-box athletic role. going forward and backwards, driving forward on the ball. He's got defensive ability playing at left back, but he's also good going forward. So that for me would probably be the team that I would go with there in every position, actually. But I just think that central midfielder might just be Merino. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Then we look at Wolves, and I think you go forward and think, right, what changes would we make? Well, if everybody is fit, what I would probably do is I'd play Lewis Skelly in place of Calafiori, because obviously Calafiori's suspended. Nkapie would stay there. But actually, I think I'd rest Timber and bring back Saliba, who is apparently going to be fit for this game. Raya stays in goal, and I would actually keep Ben White there and rest Jurriën Timber, okay, for that game. I think Zubamendi can come back into this midfield, and I think we play a little bit more 4-2-3-1. So instead of Lewis Skelly, you bring in Zubamendi back into the team. Whoops, wrong one. Where is he? Zubamendi. So we've got Lewis Skelly at left back. And then the other Lewis Skelly up here, you will have, who did I say? Zubamendi. So I think then you bring a little bit of rotation back. Now, that would obviously be in a 4-2-3-1 there, okay? And then I think I'd probably keep it similar up top, because I think you can do without Declan Rice and Saka and bring them both on if you need to. Now, let's say we're 2-0 up. We don't need to risk Saka and Rice. But if you did need them, then you've got them to be utilised. So Saka comes on, Nørgaard comes off, and you play Declan Rice. Yeah? So Nørgaard comes off, Declan Rice comes in, yeah? And Zubamendi is that holding player again. If you want and you don't think Nørgaard's quite getting it right, then on comes Eze. And this is how you start using your squad. This is how you start looking better. So I think that right there is what I want to be seeing for Wolves. And this is an absolute, oh my God, we're only 1-0 up and there's 25 minutes to go. We're struggling here. Or it's 0-0 and we're struggling to get a goal here. That's what happens. And that's what I want to see now from Mikel Arteta, because I do feel like he's got the squad there. So use it. That's where I'm at, people. Yeah. A lot of people do believe that there's an opportunity for us to go and rest some players tonight. I'm not saying throw the games. I'm not saying don't you dare bring anybody on. I'm not saying that, because that's what they're there for, right? And that's what rotating is. It's not leave those 6 players out, and if we have to play the kids, we have to play the kids. Give them a certain amount of minutes. Instead of playing Declan Rice for 90, play him for 50. Bring him off. Or bring him on for 30 at the 60-minute mark. Same with Bukayo Saka. Same with Timber when can afford it. This is what I want to see from Arteta now. And I understand that the fans are frustrated that we're not seeing our best 11. And I think our best 11, to be fair, when it's fit, has an unbelievable chance of doing some damage. We haven't seen that first 11 for God knows how long. David Raya's playing, but he's not playing with the back 5 that we want. It's not been Raya, Calafiori, Gabriel, Saliba and Timber for a long time. In midfield, it still hasn't been Rice, Zubamendi and Odegaard for a long time. And up front, it hasn't been Saka, Martinelli and Gyökeres for a long time. Or whether it's Eze or Trossard you want to play on the left. Because we haven't had the players to do that with. We haven't. And as much as the squad's there and players have just come in, I think people have underappreciated how strong the squad is this season, because nobody's talking about the injuries at Arsenal because they haven't been evident enough because of the players coming in. Madueke's been a part of that. Trossard and Martinelli have stepped up their game. Eze's coming when Nørgaard's been out. Merino had to play up top again whilst Havertz, Jesus and Gyökeres is out. He's our 4th choice striker, Merino. It's crazy. Yet people are praising him. Nørgaard's not really got minutes yet. Neither have Ethan, neither has Max Dowman. But they're still there. On top of if Zubamendi, Rice or Odegaard were to get knocks. At the back, we've seen Nkapie Mosquera come in. We've seen Timber shift over. Ben White's come in. Left back, you've got Calafiori or Lewis Skelly or Nkapie that's played at left back as well. People have forgotten. And Kepa, who's hardly got any minutes in goal if Raya was to go down. This is an exceptionally good squad now. Probably the best we've seen since Highbury in the Invincible days. Let's just have it right. I don't think anyone's denying the fact that Arsenal got the strongest squad in the league. What they've now got to do is prove that by delivering and getting across the line. So look, I'll be real with you. I'll do more talk on the Wolves game at another time. But for me right now, I look at the Club Brugge scenario and I do believe that we can win this game. Now, I do also believe we can drop points in this game because you have made a few changes and perhaps it's not the right momentum and we've lost a little bit of that after the loss to Villa. But I think we should be beating Club Brugge. I think we're the better side. And I think Club Brugge probably know that. Now, I will say that this is actually a dead rubber because if we beat Kairat, we kind of through into the next 8, right? Which I think we will do. I think we've got to lose all 3 by like a lot of goals not to get into that top 8. In fact, I think pretty much we're there now, in fact, even if we did lose all 3 of them. But I'm not saying we should now forget and give up. We should be going for it because this squad's still good enough to go and beat them. This squad would be good enough to beat Wolves. I saw them against United. They lost 4-1 to United at home. They're terrible right now. They've got 2 points. It's the worst side I've seen since Derby right now, Wolves, in the Premier League. It's a poor, poor time. So I need to see now Arsenal showing that the squad is strong, that it isn't just a myth, and that Mikel Arteta can rotate and also coach and get the best out of his squad players. Trust those squad players. If you're playing Ethan today, cool, I want to see Ethan. In fact, I'd like to see Ethan given an opportunity, seeing as Eze and Nørgaard aren't exactly holding down that attacking midfield position. Maybe Ethan would like to think, I've got a chance here, actually, to prove myself here. Because I don't think either of those two are really making it difficult for me to come in there and knock on the door and say, fancy giving me a chance. Now, we know that Odegaard's his favourite and captain. We know that Eze's been a player bought, so they're obviously in the pecking order ahead of Ethan. I get it. But Ethan shouldn't be looking at that going, I'm going to have to get a loan here, because actually there's an opportunity for him to get some minutes in the Champions League games that are seen as dead rubbers, get some minutes in the Carabao Cup games where I think he should be starting. And then in January, you can look and think, I've played about 4 games. Let's go and get a loan move. And I don't care if he has to go and get, I don't want him to. I'd be keeping everybody. But if he really wants to go out and say, I need to go and get a loan move, then fair play. Ethan needs to go to Leeds or go to a Burnley or go to someone that's playing every game in the Premier League, toughen him up a bit and get him used to first team football. I've got no problem with that. I truly believe what he wants to do with Ethan is get him stronger defensively and off the ball. And then we go from there. But tonight, let's see what we do. Big up to everyone that's here. Make sure you do me a favor. Hit the like button. Make sure you hit subscribe. Let's get to 60K. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, people.